Hello, welcome back to Socially Unapologetic. Today we have Eric here from Pick6 Athletics. I'm so excited to be chatting with Eric today. As you guys know, we start off our shows always with two truths and one lie. So we're putting Eric on the spot and asking him any two truths and one lie about himself. So Eric, it's all yours.
Well, first, thanks for having me on the show. Excited to be here and just talk about my experience with entrepreneurship and business and everything. So I love what you're doing. Appreciate it. To think about this, two truths and a lie. Okay, I would say one of them would be I first came up with the idea and Pick6 Athletics a year before I took any action to start it.
Mm-hmm.
The second point would be that I wanted to go with a different name first, but it was taken. So I came with Pick6 Athletics. And then the third point, which is either a truth or a lie, would be after I settled on Pick6 Athletics, that name was also taken from somebody else. So I had to message them and ask for the name, and we did a little transfer of accounts.
Wow. Okay. Don't tell us what it is because at the end, when everybody has listened, we're going to go back. I'm going to guess and then we will give them the right answer. But I also want to dive
Okay.
into that last one because I feel like I have a similar story. So we'll chat about that at the end. So, Eric, I feel like this has been a long time coming. I've started my podcast journey like a year and a half ago, and I remember you being like, "When are we going? When are we going?" So now that we're here, a year and a half later, and you are finally a guest, I'm
Yep.
super excited. Tell us a bit about what inspired you to start your business. Kind of dive into like the story of how you got started and how it all came to be what it is today.
So I'll tell a story, but now I can't give a couple of details. I might give away the two truths or a lie.
That's okay.
So Pick6 Athletics, just for some background, it's my company for defensive back training in football positions, defensive back. It's what I played at Queen's University. I played football past 15 years, played at high school also, before, and just recently was at Queen's. And throughout my time, I've had some really good coaches, some good trainers, and I've always been one to ask extra questions, figure out the why behind everything, put extra hours in on the field, and just get to learn a lot about drills and things that apply to football. So back in the pandemic, when we just had a bunch of time off and summer job doesn't end up happening, then I started Pick6 Athletics. I started training some guys in Mississauga, which is where I'm from. And from there, I started filming some clips, putting it on Instagram, and it's kind of just been growing and growing and growing. The whole purpose of it is to help defensive backs develop. So a bunch of things I learned as I was getting older, as my career progressed. There's so many times, and you can apply the same idea to anything you do. There's so many times where I'm like, oh, I wish I knew this earlier. I wish that I knew how to train this way, or I knew this about football, whatever it is. Because if you knew something earlier, it would have helped you out so much and you would be accelerating with your development. It's like, imagine you started to post on Instagram for your company, and then 100 posts later, you learn something. It's like, oh, wow, this makes it so much easier. So my whole goal with it is to help develop the young defensive backs, anybody who's willing to work hard, listen to instructions, follow programs, and just really wants to become the best that they can as quick as possible. So I started a few years ago, and I've just been growing and growing it. I moved back to Mississauga in January, started training guys here in person. Before it was a lot more just online in terms of growing the socials, but now it's a lot of in-person work. And I started an online training program as well called Lockdown Academy, where I have a variety of training programs for defensive backs. So my goal is just help as many guys as I can in person and online, and just give them all the resources, all the tools to succeed that I wish I had when I was younger, and just things that are going to help accelerate their career and help them develop faster.
Nice. I love that. And if there was like one specific like person you think inspired you, or like not, it doesn't even have to be a person, whether it's like a book, or is there one certain thing that like inspired you to kind of start this, or even just like maybe like you were saying before, like the lack of having those resources?
Mm-hmm. So I'd say a couple of things. I'm not going to answer it directly.
Yeah.
But I had, like I said, a couple really good coaches, good trainers. And even from high school I went to that was really good for football. There's so many things I learned at the next level. I was like, oh my God, why did I not know this earlier? It's so simple. Like, it makes so much sense. So all my coaches at Queens, different trainers I've worked with over the years, inspired me to help more guys who needed. It's like you learn from these guys, you teach you guys below you, and just it's kind of just the way it goes in sports. You want to just help those who are coming up next. In terms of actually starting the business side of it, I remember it was a quick little funny story in my first year of university. Just kind of tired with classes. It's like, all right, like been doing enough homework. It gets really busy as a student athlete. So I'm on YouTube and I'm watching those get rich quick videos. And one of the things was like rules to be a millionaire. And one of them was create an ebook back when ebooks were popping off in
Mhm.
2018, 2019. I'm like, all right, what do I know a lot about? And the only thing was really defensive back training. So I got the idea. It's like, all right, if I create an ebook, I could sell it for 20 bucks, whatever it is online. How would I promote it? I could make an Instagram and post myself doing the drills. So that's kind of where it all started and inspired. And from there, it grew and took action and just actually made it into more of a business.
Mhm.
Well, what inspired me to do that was one, kind of getting tired of schoolwork and got the idea from the YouTube video to make something myself. And before you ever actually do something or create a business when you're younger, it's like you see other people doing it. Like, whoa, like, can I do that? I wonder what it's like to get started. And you kind of you're just completely lost and don't know where to go. So the first thing is just you got to get started somewhere. And then again, just in terms of what inspired me to actually start helping other people and coach up other DBs was just seeing the change in the access to certain knowledge, how much it could help. And I knew that where we are in Canada, there's a big lack of it. There's a ton of coaches in the States, but there's so much more room for improvement still. So I wanted to take what I learned, share it to other people. And then also on the business side, I went, okay, what can I do here? I know about defensive back. Let's start turning it into a product and a business.
Has entrepreneurship always been something that, like, when you were younger, you like thought you would do, or is this something that just kind of came about? Like, you never thought that like you'd be a business owner.
I I knew that I would, and because just things I'd watch on if it's different stories or like YouTube and just talking about entrepreneurship. I remember when I was younger, I saw this really cool picture that stood out to me. And I don't want it to seem like it's all about money, but it was
No,
like
no, no.
different careers. And it showed this career is this much, this doctor is this much, but business owner is unlimited. It's like, whoa, you can just really keep growing. And what really stands out to entrepreneurship for me is same in football. It's how much you work is how much you're going to get out of it. So if I'm at the field, if I spend time after practice, if I'm watching extra film, I'm going to see the results show up compared to if you're just in a job where it's working for these hours, whatever you work, no matter how efficient you get, how much you improve your skills, it's the same outcome. Entrepreneurship is great because if you work, if you continue to develop yourself, if you provide more value to the market and you're able to help more people or help people better, then you're going to get rewarded for it. And I
Hmm.
love the freedom of it. I just work as long as I want. And like I'm saying, you get rewarded for it. So
Hmm.
it's a long journey. And when I was younger, also, I go to work with my dad, and he wasn't technically an entrepreneur, but my grandfather bought this company and they did aluminum extrusion. So they pretty much paint metals for high rise buildings. And it was a big industrial plant. So I just got some firsthand experience of seeing how hard it takes to work to run a company, what it's like to lead a group of workers, and kind of have a hat for every aspect of the company, not just doing a specialized role, but a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and just being all around a leader in a setting. So seeing that, one, you could take it two ways. Is you could say, "Oh wow, I don't want to work that hard," or and have all this responsibility. If things go wrong, it's on you. It's not like you're an employee and your employer is just always giving you that paycheck. Or the other way you could look at it is, okay, I see how much work it takes to succeed, but as long as you're a good leader, as long as you know how to manage people, the business, if you're continuing to develop, then it's great because of the freedom with it and the upside potential. So entrepreneurship really stands out to me because of those reasons. And if you're somebody who doesn't like to work hard, then it's probably not the best career path because cool quote I heard once was everything goes wrong all the time and there's always things to work on. There's always different solutions you have to find to your problem. So got to work hard, but I'm somebody who's up for the challenge, and that's what really stands out about it to me.
No, I love that. I saw something too the other day that was like, if you're not ready to commit the time into your business, you're never going to see that money. Like they always say, like that 5 years with business, right? Like in the first 5 years of your business, that's the make or break, and where people kind of fall because they don't want to put in that effort and time and they just want to see that money. But it's like you don't really see that money until after the 5 years and after all of that hard work and those like 12 to 14-hour days and the days where you just like feel like giving up. So I love that you brought that up.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm still in that beginning phase before before it really takes off. And again, it's been a lot of social media growth, but now that I'm actually doing more training in person and online, I know where I'm going with it. So I
Hmm.
know I got goals for how many guys I want to have on my program, subscribers, and I know as long as I keep adding new programs and offerings to create really an all-in-one product, I know where it's going, and other people don't get it. They're like, "Man, why are you still unemployed? Why, whatever?" I'm like, "Guys, trust me. Just give it a bit of time because sometimes you're the only one who could see the vision. So
Yeah.
you just have to keep working at it, have the strategy, know where you're going, and that's the other thing with entrepreneurship is it takes that time. It's not going to be an overnight success.
Yeah, and people don't see that hard work too that's behind closed doors, right? Like people just like see only what they see on social media or what they see online or what they think you work like a 9 to 5, but they don't see that hard work that's put in when you're not thinking about it. The late nights that like I literally stay up and I'm like writing in my notes app, just like all of these things that are running through my
Yeah,
head when I'm trying to fall asleep. And it's like people don't understand that. So it's like,
literally.
yeah, it's just, it never
the
stops.
be-
You
the
never
be-
get to
the
shut it
best
off.
example I could think of is sometimes they'll see a post maybe on Instagram, they'll get 500,000 views, whatever, but they don't see how it took me 30 voiceover tries to just keep getting
Yeah.
it right, and I want to make it sound good and use the right words and just doing it and all the work behind the scenes. They just see the finished product on it.
Yeah. So I want to kind of transition a bit into social media because I know social media in your business is a big area that you've kind of grown, like even since the time that I've known you, seeing your Instagram page grow. So how has social media transformed your business and how have you leveraged that in your business?
So I'll say a few things, and people ask me for tips if they're starting an account, whatever it is. And there's a few things that I always go back to for social media. Number one is start posting a lot of stuff. So some people will say you want it higher quality, less frequently. I would just say get as much out there as you can. Aim for it. Some people post like once to every couple weeks, be like, oh, my account's not growing at all. I was the same way. I probably posted a few times a week when I was starting off. And then when I saw the most growth was when I started posting either every day or twice a day. And it's just getting the reps in of posting a lot so you could see what does well, learn how to edit the content, what to do with it, but also just the algorithms. I think that they reward you for posting a lot on their
Mm.
platforms. So if it's Instagram, I remember back a couple years ago when I was just had a few thousand followers, it was very linear. I grow a little bit, and then as soon as one summer I started posting twice a day, it blew up. I probably gained 15,000 followers that summer, which to me was like, where did these all come from?
Yeah.
So my number one tip for social media is just getting a lot of content out there, especially now. Tons of online coaches and online gurus, whatever it is, you have to find a way to stand out, and you're not going to do that with just a couple videos. Two is say it's related, but I really like using CapCut. It's just finding out systems and understanding what you have to do to come up with this content. So when I use CapCut and I put videos in there, it's really simple to edit it and come out with a cool product, video here, text, whatever. So just figure out whatever editing you want to use. I don't think it really matters what one, but again, I'll give CapCut the shout out because it makes it really easy. So as long as you have your system, okay, I'm gonna film clips here, and then I'll turn them into clips there. Or if I'm looking for NFL clips, I'll watch certain YouTube videos that have a bunch back to back. I'll pick the best ones out. So two is kind of a mix of ideas, but have a plan for how you're actually going to get content. You're not just going to sit there and it's going to appear on your Instagram. You have to
Yeah.
actually plan, okay, I'm going to go for me to the field. I'm going to film these workouts, film these drills. The good ones I'll post. I'm going to make a list of tweets, whatever. I'll turn these into posts on Instagram. So you just have to have a plan and have to have a system for how you actually take things from your photo library onto Instagram or YouTube, whatever it is. And then the last thing I would say in terms of content is it's pretty much the first tip again, but you just have to stay consistent with it. You could
Mhm.
post every day, every day, every day, and then not post for a couple months. And it's this idea I go back to, and I talk about sometimes in the more motivational videos I do, but you don't always see the momentum. So you could post for 2 months straight and the growth goes really, or it's not growing much. So you stop for a couple weeks and then it starts taking off because everything you posted before kind of has that delay effect. And then it starts taking off. Then you start posting a bit more. But since that period of time where you stop posting, all your viewers and insights might go down. So my main point there, just like we're talking about with entrepreneurship, is understand that it's not going to happen overnight. You
Mhm.
have to continually stay consistent. They say a lot in sports, trust the process because what you do today, you may not see the results for a very long time. And the best example of this I could give is on YouTube. I had some videos that were probably just a couple hundred views. And then a year or 2 years later, they start getting a lot more traction and they might be at a couple tens of thousands of views now. So you just got to stay consistent, understand your system for editing, how you're going to get clips on there, and then get a lot of content out. The more you could do, the more you're going to learn, and the more chances you have of one of those posts blowing up to get you a lot of followers, views, leads, whatever your goal is for social media.
And would you say like you ever dealt with like the imposter syndrome with social media? Like everybody kind of talks about that like imposter syndrome. And I know in our generation, like being like in the 20s, like I feel like that age group, social media, I feel like when we were a bit younger was like very like every you post everything and people want to know everything about your life. And I feel like it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
transitioned a bit. So have you ever dealt with that like feeling like people are like judging you for what you're posting? Because this is a lot of what I deal with clients. They'll be like, I want to start this business, but I'm so scared of what people are going to think about me. They're going to think I'm annoying posting this. They're not going to want to watch me. And like, I feel like that's a big thing, especially in that 20 to like that generation age group, like that people are dealing with when starting a business is everything is online and they fear what others think of
Yeah, no, I can definitely relate. And I would say this to start it off that whatever goes on in your head, all the worries are always going to be much, much worse than what actually happens. So before starting the business, I was in my third year of university. I was an all right player. Like I was just, starting the end of my first season, then my second year. But it's not like I was really good or stood out or anything, at least not yet. So I started the business and it's all about teaching guys how to be better at football. So, before I started it, I delayed a bit and I was worried, like, oh, what are you guys gonna think? Like, by no means am I a
them.
long-term coach or whatever, like NFL caliber player where everybody's gonna be taking my advice. So I would say when I was starting off, it was a lot more just videos of me training and videos of guys training, and it wasn't as much of teaching going on. But I had two things that were really important. One, the support I had from all my teammates and coaches was amazing. Nobody was like, bro, why are you doing this? You don't know anything. It was all love and everybody was very supportive and not to get in the videos whenever we trained together. So like I said at the start, it was all kind of in my head before and I never had that. None of the worries actually happened. Or one thing I thought was, oh, if I mess up on game day, other teams are just going to talk shit and be like, oh yeah, Mr. Pick6 Athletics, like you don't know what you're doing. But nothing like that ever happened. There was no hate at all and everybody was super supportive, which it's important to surround yourself with people who want to see you grow and aren't always saying, oh, this would never work, this would never work. You need that positive energy to thrive. Now you need people who are going to call you out and make sure that you have good ideas and you're not blindly going down the wrong path.
Mhm.
But it's important to have that energy that builds you up and gives you confidence for the business. Then the other side of it would be now you see a lot more of me doing teaching and coaching points and things that are a bit more advanced because at this point it's like I don't feel like that at all. I've worked with a bunch of guys in person. I know from things that I've done, drills I've made up, things I've learned that actually help me. I know what I'm doing helps, and I could see it for myself. I could see it with other people. So just over time, after doing it for longer, it's like kind of any fear of that imposter syndrome goes away. And
Yeah.
every once in a while, it'll come back, be like, "Oh, do I really know what I'm talking about?" But it's just something everybody has, so it's perfectly natural.
Hmm.
You just gotta create some success, believe in yourself more, and understand that it's natural. But as long as you have the right group of people to help you grow, and as long as you can get some actual success or momentum going with the ball, for me, training guys in person, seeing them improve, I'm like, all right, I could do this. I know that. I know
Yeah.
that's gonna work out.
No, I love that. What do you think sets your business apart from other people in your industry? Like, what's something you would say is different that you bring to the table that, like, because I know you were talking about earlier within that industry, like, there is a lot of your coaching in the States, but in Canada, maybe there's not as much. So you can also kind of touch on that as well.
So two things I'll touch upon. One, online, there's a few, especially when I started, there was only a couple of defensive back accounts. I remember even before I started, it's like, oh, this guy's doing it, this guy's doing it. I don't know if I should get started, whatever. But now I look and there's so many accounts doing the exact same thing. So it's like, okay, good thing I got started back then. The most important thing is just taking action and getting started. What would defer me, the differentiate me from them would, one, be amount of detail. Some posts I like to add tags, have my voiceover, and get in lots of details. The variety of content, and I say this, it's kind of nuanced because you have to be focused on your niche. But I'm talking about how to get guys faster, showing examples of film, me training, different things for staying healthy as an athlete, defensive back. So I want to touch on everything that could possibly help, and not just be, okay, this account only does film breakdowns, or this account's only videos of a guy training. It's like whatever they need, I want to be able to provide that. And then also for differentiating online would be, actually, I'll talk about Canada now. So that's just guys. I don't think anybody else even makes content like that in Canada. It's just mainly with coaches in the States. For actually differentiating myself from competition here, the cool thing is that there isn't really any. So guys will
Nice.
teach technique, and it's what makes it tough. Because when I was growing up, I had a coach, Coach Cannon, who's awesome. He did strength and conditioning with us, and we got on the field a bit. But all the guys who focus on DB, they're pretty much on a coaching roster somewhere. So it's like a Queens DB coach or CFL DB coach, whatever it is, just to go around here and help all the guys up in the area, high school, uni guys who were here for the summer. There's nobody else really doing that DB training, and which is why I chose to pursue it, because there's a lot of guys who I know want the help and I can help, and right now they don't have any access to it before I started. So I thought, all right, I'm going to come here. I'm going to start doing defensive back specific training, focus in on it, which is another huge thing, being focused and know what you're going for, and just actually creating that offering to help whoever is there. Because the market's there, the need is there, the problem's there, but there's no solution to it. So as long as I take what I'm doing at Kingston, just bring them back here, there's a ton of guys that could help out.
Hmm. No, I like that. And then going off of social media a bit, I know we talked about this at the beginning, but how do you define success? What does success mean to you? I love asking people this question because I think success is so different for every single person. Some people focus on money, some people focus on like just the growth, whether it's the freedom, the influence. So like what does success mean to you?
So it's a great question, and one of those you hear on job interviews and that type of setting. And it's so good because success, the way I look at it, really depends on the individual. So I know you just said that, but
Hmm.
if somebody only wants money, success for them will be being in a pool of money with a bunch of gold bricks. Success is only helping people, then they're always going to be out helping as many people as they can, whatever. Success for me is being able to, whatever my current goals are, whatever I'm working towards, is just be the best I possibly can. So as I'm done playing football now, but when I was playing very recently, success was being the best I possibly can, being the best teammate, the best leader I can, and just not letting any of those aspects of life be bad. So whatever you're focused on for success, it has to be, say, all encompassing. It has to be everything with it. You can't just be really, really good at what you do and making social media posts for companies, but terrible at working with people, no customer service skills. You have to be good at all of it. So I look at success as, you want to be successful in business, you want to be successful in life, you want to have health, good relationships with your family, and just kind of everything in one. And the only way you're going to get that is if whatever you're working on at that current moment, you really, really focus in on it. So if I'm in class, I have to focus on what's happening in class. If I'm on the field, focus on that. If I'm watching film, focus on that. And again, anybody can make their own definition of success. For me, I would say what I really want to do is just be on that mission to help as many guys as I can and just always be on that growing journey in life, learning as much as I can, improving myself as much as I can, and helping others out along the way.
What is one piece of advice you would give to somebody that is looking to start a business, doesn't know where to start, and just feels all of everything? Like when you're first starting a business, has all of those questions. And I know that you said that you had nowhere to turn to. I also had nowhere to turn to when I started my business. So that's why I started this podcast, because I feel like everybody has a story. So what's one piece of advice you would give to somebody that's kind of in that, like, do I start it? Do I not?
The most important thing, which I've talked about a little bit, is just getting started with it. You have to, I love this quote. It's saying, sometimes in life, it's like a connect the dots. You don't really understand what's going on until you did it and you could look back and see the shape. So you just have to get to work. If it's something related to what we're talking about, create the content, reach out to customers, start helping people out. And as long as you're working consistently, always doing the most productive thing you can, even if it's in the wrong direction, you're going to learn from it. You're going to start seeing progress. You're going to start seeing gains. If it's in the gym, you can't just sit there and think. You actually have to go and start putting in work. So the worst thing you could do is just sit there, plan everything out, and just think about it. Try to perfect everything before you get started. My advice would be just get started today. As soon as you're done watching this, whatever it is, literally make the account, make the first post, reach out to a customer, start trying to help somebody. You just have to get started with it. One, you're going to beat your competition to it. If you wait, they might go with somebody else and then they might get locked in, so you can miss out on that. Two, like I said before, the more content, the better. So as you get started, the more opportunity you're out there for more people to see it, for more opportunities to come from it. And then three, unless you get started, you're not actually going to keep learning. So I actually, quick little funny story, but in 2020, I spent a bunch of time after we were done with school and the pandemic. I spent a bunch of time reading books, listening to podcasts, and just trying to learn as much as possible. But then I realized that I was actually just waiting so long to get started with the idea I had. And the most learning gets done when you actually just get started. Because I've had a couple of jobs in sales in the past, and it's like you could do as much practice as you want. You could read as many books about sales as you want. But unless you actually start talking to customers, you're never going to get the experience, know what it's actually like to be out there in the field. And you're never going to start building your skills until you actually get started. So that would be my one piece of advice. If I had to pick one, to just start and start doing something. For people who really feel like they're procrastinators or they don't know how to get started, a trick I do when I wouldn't want to study would be set a 10-minute alarm on my phone, put it somewhere out of sight, just focus in, literally just for 10 minutes, just start working. And then you find once you get started, you actually get into the zone, and just getting started is the hardest part. So you just have to begin and trust the process from there. Understand that when you look back, the dots will be connected and you'll start figuring it out.
Yeah, and I think you're always learning in business. Like there's always that, like you're always coming across something that you didn't know. And even me being 4 years into my business, like every single day I'm learning something. I'm always either educating myself on social media. As everybody knows, social media changes literally every single day. So I'm always having to stay up. Like I'm always reading things. I'm listening to podcasts. I'm reading books. Like you always are learning. So whether you're like scared because you don't know everything, like nobody knows everything in a business. So I think that's super
Mm-hmm.
important, just because like, yeah, what I knew 4 years ago versus what I know now is a lot, but I still need to learn more, and I'll always need to learn more, especially in my industry. So
Right.
like,
But knowing that if you're at least on the path where you're continuing to get better, learning more stuff, improving your skills, your output, then even if you have a bit of imposter syndrome, you know that soon enough it won't matter because you'll just get so much better anyways. So the only reason you should actually be worrying is if you're not developing yourself at all, because
mhm.
then your competition is going to keep getting better. Your customers are going to need more help. But if you're not getting better, then it's only a matter of time before you're obsolete. So as long as you keep developing yourself, like you say, reading, watching. I like what you said about the notes app at night. Sometimes I'll wake up from a dream with an idea I came from and just put it in the notes app. So you just have to, you're just continuing to get better.
Yeah, everybody has their own little ways of like in a business, like I always talk about like my notes app, like I literally have it beside me and it's just like all my notes app is everything, all my thoughts are in here. And I'm like, oh my God, if I ever lost this, I don't know where I would be. But everybody has their own kind of way of like thinking and kind of putting everything together. And I just don't think that there's ever one specific like equation that makes a business owner. Everybody comes from different avenues. What works for somebody isn't always going to work for somebody else. And it's that like collaboration over competition too. Like don't look at your competitors as competition. It's collaboration. Like how can you guys work together? How can you like well not work together maybe depending on what the industry is. But
It
like
would depend on it, but I
yeah.
feel you. Instead of being super scared about a competition, whatever, maybe that's another coach I could work to. We could set up a camp
Mhm.
together and start working together. Just of what you were saying, it sparked another couple ideas I want to bring up for somebody who actually more of the doesn't know where to get started or just overall business advice. One thing I do, I don't use a notes app as much. I'll just text myself something and then it'll pop up. It's on my computer and my phone. So I'm just always texting myself. It's pretty funny. And then two, what I use for pretty much all my notes, all my program planning and everything is just Google Sheets. So as simple as it
Mhm.
sounds, I'm a one-man army, so I don't need like any
Yeah.
crazy CRM or anything. I just use Google Sheets for it. If I'm just on my phone, if something pops into my head, if I make a new drill, I can put it in there and describe it. It's on my laptop. And then from there, so I use Wix for everything. My website, my online programs is all with Wix. And I did it in a way where just some advice for anybody who's doing something similar. It would be very, very easy to leave, copy and paste it, and go somewhere else. So on my Google Sheets, for a program example, I have the exercise, sets and reps. And then what I did, so I'm very flexible and I can move around, is just put a YouTube link to an unlisted video for, I have hundreds of exercises in there. So if I ever want to switch programs or platforms, I mean, if Wix went out of business for whatever reason, then I can always just copy and paste somewhere else. So I love using things like iMessage or Google Sheets where it's in the cloud. Like you said with the Notes app, I don't have to worry about if the phone breaks
Yeah,
because then
true.
I know that there's all the backup there. And sometimes if you plan so much and did so much brainstorming, it's like, whoa, if I lost this or if I'm doing an edit on Canva, I'm like, oh my God, I really hope my laptop doesn't break. So I like to just use things that if that does happen, then you're safe because it's somewhere in the cloud.
I'm the queen of Google, Google Drive. All my clients know like everything is in Google because I find it's the most like user friendly. And then you hear people talk all the time about like these like CRMs and all of that. And I've tried everything and I just find that you want to make it as simple as possible for yourself and for other people because when you complicate everything, then it's just like you deter people. And that's where people get that that pause because they're like, oh, this is too much work. I don't want to learn a new platform. I don't want to do this. So like I am the queen of Google and I will stand with Google forever because I think
It's
it's
great,
so
especially
user
if you're
friendly.
starting off. Why I like Wix or Google Sheets before that even is it's cheap. I don't have to pay anything extra.
Hmm.
So an app called Team Builder, which is what we used at Queens for our team training, you have to pay more as more people join. It's like however much it is a month. I'm like, okay, I don't want to do this. I'm just starting off. I don't even know if the idea is going to work yet. So the
Yeah.
best way to do it is just some easy copy and paste, Google Drive, whatever it is. And then as you grow, as you get more income, then you can reinvest in the business and make it say more professional or whatever from there. But it just goes back to the earlier point of advice. Best thing you could do is just get started. There's always a
Hmm.
cheap way to do it. And you could get started without doing too much on the front end and without having to incur too many costs. So I have one more tip for social media. And this was very, very eye opening to me because I never really understood it. And I touch upon it a bit in terms of being able to give defensive backs the speed training, the film, staying healthy, all of that. Starting at December last year, right after our football season, so late November, early December, I had 79,000 followers on Instagram. As soon as the season ended, I started posting maybe twice a day or three times a day because I never posted as much during the season. And it took a little bit, maybe a couple weeks to get to 80,000. The thing that really took off was at the same time, and I spent a bunch of time on this, I created a different account, which was just for injury prevention for athletes, because I've learned a lot about dealing with those nagging injuries, not having tight hips, pulled hamstring, all that stuff. And I did it for 2 weeks just as a test. So always feel free to start something and test it out for a little bit to see how it works. So I was doing 2 posts on Pick6 Athletics, 1 post on this account, which I just called Injury Prevention for Athletes. And then after 2 weeks, it grew a little bit. I probably had a couple hundred followers just because of people who I put on my story and wanted to follow right away. But I thought about it for a while. It's like, okay, how am I really going to, just me, put all my time, energy into growing Pick6 Athletics with everything I want to get started, and then also do the same thing with the injury prevention for athletes. So I stopped, and when I realized I could just post 3 times a day on Pick6 Athletics, that was probably near the end of December, and I'm at 80,000 followers. Not long after, in January, I hit 100,000. At some point, I think it was June, I hit 150, and now I'm at 165. This is all on Instagram, but this goes back to the earlier points of lots of content and focused in on it. I started focused a lot more on defensive back, not just everybody in a whole. So I really focused in on that niche, and I started bringing a lot more content. So whoever is a defensive back, I just think about it. Why not follow? He's giving 2 or 3 educational tips, videos a day to help me out for free. Sure, why not? So instead of trying to solve every problem at once, even there's some receivers who want to train with me for sections, and it's just defensive back specific. And I've had them out a couple of times, but most of the time I just have to decline it because I'm just focused on the one niche of really solving that problem. As soon as I feel like I'm doing that very efficiently and I've checked a lot off my to-do list, then I'll expand it. But a big thing for starting the business is not going after everybody at first. I'd actually like to hear for Socially Brooke how
Yeah.
you kind of got started with the first customers, because I haven't done it, but I'd figure if I was doing a social media agency, it would make sense to kind of aim for one type of client, get my skills up, and then expand out from there. So what would you say with your experience?
Yeah, I think that like when I first started, I was super niche in the sense of like I focus a lot on organic engagement and really that social media management. And then over the years, I've grown my business. I don't say I never want to be an agency, but I want to stay small in the sense of like I really want to connect with people on like they get to talk to me and then my team and they get to know us like on a personal level as well so that they can feel secure, because I think social media is so personal. Like you're dealing with people's businesses and their personal accounts and like their personal lives and whatever that may be. So as I've now grown 4 years, I've expanded my services into like web design, web management, paid ads, like content creation. Like I've always been
Hmm.
adding services. But at the beginning, when I saw that, I was like, I can't, because I can't be perfect in every single one. And I don't think that you have to be perfect in your business in every single, like, I'm always learning. But if I didn't niche down, I don't think I'd be where I am today, because I would have been trying to wear every single hat versus like perfecting the social media management. And then that's how I grew. And then I've realized as I've grown that people need full marketing. So it's like, how can I offer them everything? I do believe that social media is a big part of your business and it's like the second Google. So we build that foundation, and then once that foundation's built, then we move on to another one, and then we keep building and building. But when you're trying to wear every single hat and you're trying to do TikTok and you're trying to do Instagram and you're trying to do paid ads and get your website and everything all at once, is super overwhelming, and then it deters people. So like start small, start with that one thing you feel like you're most confident in, and then as you grow, you keep expanding.
I love it because I'm just thinking if you were to try to start all of that, just you, every aspect of business all at the same time, it would be damn near impossible task to be
Yeah.
able to do that compared to getting really good, niching, expanding from there, and just kind of keep expanding on it. I had another question I want to ask you. So the
Hmm.
whole thing, and I saw the teasers you did on Instagram for the podcast, all about entrepreneurship and building a community, helping people out. Was there something specific you saw in terms of another podcast, or was it just feeling that you had to create it? Like, what inspired the Socially Unapologetic podcast?
Yeah, I haven't got asked that. I feel like that's like something that I'm trying to express on my page to people is like when I first started, I made so many mistakes. I honestly, like, I could go on for days about how many mistakes I made when I first started. I didn't really know where to turn to or what to do or where to get answers. Like, I didn't grow up with my parents being entrepreneurs. I wasn't really surrounded by entrepreneurs. So I was kind of just like, what do I do? And then now, being 4 years into my business, I've talked to a lot of people who are starting marketing companies, and they'll ask me, I was doing like coaching, and I was just kind of like, I was charging people for the coaching. So I kind of just felt like, how can I like give back in the way that I never had? And maybe it's because I wasn't looking for it, but I was so like almost naive to looking for it. I was like, I don't need help. I'm going to figure this out. Like, I can do things by myself, because that's just like the type of person I am. I'm just like, I will figure it out and I'll just make it work. But I truly think everybody has a story, and every business owner has stories, and it's important to like talk about it, because on social media and just working with social media, everybody wants to be perfect. Everybody wants to show the good days, but nobody wants to talk about the bad days, and nobody wants to talk about the ugly sides of business, and there's so many ugly sides to business. And I just feel like we need that authenticity and that realness, and that's what's lacking, because I can like literally like put on makeup and I can like look completely fine, but inside I'm like struggling and I feel like I'm failing. And it's like nobody would know that, because I'm just like on social media and I'm going to the gym and I'm doing this and I look so happy. And it's just like, no, you don't even know what people's stories are. And I think stories hold so much. So I wanted to just have a space where somebody listening, whether they are a business owner and they're feeling like that, or whether they're trying to start a business and they don't really know where to start, they can resonate with somebody that I'm bringing on in the guests, and not just hear my story, but hear other people's, and just feel like you're not alone and you don't have to deal with every single part of business by yourself. Like, there's always going to be people that you can surround yourself with. And even just the guests I've talked to, like so many stories and so many different ways that people became entrepreneurs, that like anybody can. Like, it's not only a certain type of person can be a business owner. Anybody can. So that's why I started
That's awesome. I love it. And just like you're saying, with in terms of people only see the good things on social media, or the crazy thing for me is always the followers, because people are like, "Oh man, you're doing so well. Like you got so many followers." I'm like, "Yeah, but just having followers doesn't pay me bills or like put
Yeah.
money in the account." And yeah, people, they'll see all the good things, but they'll see, sometimes they'll be like, "I'll have a session, and I got to do a better way next year. I'll just do a monthly model instead." So you always learn from the mistakes. But sometimes expect a handful of guys at the session, and then it's like last minute they all cancel. Or whenever I get one of the notifications that's like, "Oh, this member cancel for the whatever," and whatever goes wrong. The worst thing is when you edit something for a long time on CapCut or Canva, and then it deletes and doesn't refresh. It's like, it's as funny as it sounds. If you spend a couple hours trying to make it perfect, then you have to restart all over again. It's just one of those things that nobody really sees. And you're just
Hmm.
like, oh, you
Yeah.
could think,
Nothing's.
oh, why am I doing this? It'd be so much easier to just have a job and everything set up. But there's one quote I've really liked, and the entrepreneurships would like this, is just something like, a salary is just the number you're comfortable with for you to give up on your dreams.
Hmm.
So you have to know where you're going with it and have that vision, because when things go wrong on the days that aren't good, like we were just talking about, when things happen that you really wish they wouldn't happen, you just have to learn from it,
Hmm.
recollect yourself, understand the whole vision with it moving forwards. And if you want to do something great, then a bunch of bad things have to happen to you, because otherwise you're not gonna get the same lessons out of it.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of another quote. It was on a different podcast I saw it. All the YouTube shorts, it's always just motivational podcasts. And
Yeah.
he was saying, if you were to create a person and you wanted them to be great at life and leadership and working hard, what would you put them through to get there? And it's not going to be a bunch of easy days of everything going exactly right. It's going to be a bunch of hard work, a bunch of grind time, a bunch of things going wrong, because you're only going to learn and actually improve from all the adversity you face along the way. So it's great. I love what you're doing, because entrepreneurs, only you see the benefits and everything that looks awesome on social media, but all the work behind the scenes, it doesn't even scratch the surface of what actually happens.
All right, Eric, let's go back to the two truths and one lie. If you can remember what you said, if you want to
I can remember the truth. I don't know if I can remember the lie.
Okay, if
Okay,
you can.
so I'll go in
Okay, yeah,
order.
go ahead.
The first one, a while after I actually came up with the idea, one of them was I wanted a different name first, and then I just ended up with Pick6 Athletics because that one was taken. And then the third one was that for Pick6 Athletics, another account had it first, and I had to negotiate or exchange it from them and get the account from somebody else.
Okay, I'm trying to think of what I would think that the lie is. Feel like
I feel like one of them should be pretty obvious that it's a truth.
I feel like the last one is the truth that you had to switch the name.
Are you going to get like a final guess or
Okay, I'm saying that that one's a truth. Is that like
the
yes?
last one? No, the last one's actually the lie.
Oh, wow. Okay, I did not think
Yeah,
that.
so I thought the first one would be obvious because I talked a bit about starting. I didn't go too much in detail, but in that first year, I didn't start. That was 2018 or 2019 until 2020 when I had the time. School and football take up a bunch of time, but I actually had the time to get started and put the ideas to action. The funny thing is, even though it's 4 years ago now, I wish I started earlier because if I just had more drills, more content, it's like everything would have just been so
Mhm.
much earlier. So that one was true. The second one, my first idea was DB specialty, like defensive back specialty. I definitely wouldn't want that now, but at the time it sounded cool. I think somebody took it. I don't even know. The third one I just made up as a lie on the spot. Pick6 Athletics, I got lucky. The domain wasn't taken. No social media had it. And it was
Nice.
just Pick6, for whoever doesn't know, in football is when the defender catches the ball and returns it for a touchdown. So it's directly related to my defensive back niche. And then athletics has to do with, athletics. So in terms of I could help guys get faster or stronger as well. So yeah, I'm surprised you didn't get that first one, but
I
the
don't
last one was definitely believable. I wanted to explain it a bit more to make it seem like it'd be real.
Oh. All right, Eric, thank you so much for coming on Socially Unapologetic. This was a long time coming, and I'm glad that we finally had this chat. I feel like people learned a lot from you, so I really appreciate you being here today.
For anybody who wants to get in touch, just Pick6 Athletics. You could message on Instagram if you have any questions about business or whatever. Who maybe somebody will see this in years from now and be like, "Oh, that's how we started." Whatever it is. The one thing I leave the audience for is just saying for anybody starting a business. I mean, you could apply this to anything in life. You are only going to go as far as you believe it. You set the limits on yourself. If you think you could only run a business that goes to this height instead of up here, it's going to be like that. But if you really believe that you just set your mind to something, you're the only person who could really put the limit on it. People are making millions from all these different businesses. People are becoming amazing athletes. Anything you look at, the people who succeed are the ones who believe in themselves. So if you're starting a business, even if it's at nothing right now, make that multi-year plan, understand where you're going with it, and just know that the only limits you truly have are the ones that you set on yourself.
Wow, I love that. What a good way to end the show.